Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jeff, and today we have an interesting one because I bought a new vehicle. So behind me, this silver car right here is a 1999 Mercedes-Benz SL500 Sport Roadster. And so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the car, sort of talk about what we're going to be doing with it and some of the other things, and sort of, I guess, just everything, all the work that needs to be done on the car, along with maybe some potential future plans for the car, and just kind of enjoying the Mercedes Roadster experience. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. Also, I just wanted to say before we get into the meat of the video, if you could go ahead and throw a like on this video, I'd really appreciate it because it helps me with the almighty YouTube algorithm, and in that way I know if I'm doing well or how you think of the video, and definitely drop a comment if you want to let me know what you're thinking. Okay, so starting with the front here, obviously it needs some work. This front bumper is missing. If you take a look here, you can see that the center section of the bumper has been taken out at some point. I nor the guy I bought it from know exactly what happened here. I haven't pulled the Carfax or anything, which yes, you could argue I should have before I bought it, but I got a great deal on the car, so I'm not too upset about that. Anywho, this car in particular, obviously it's missing the front bumper, so that'll have to be replaced. You'll notice the Mercedes Star, as it's called, in the middle there is also missing. That'll also need to be replaced. Miraculously, both fog lights are intact in the bumper, and even the intake air temperature sensor is kind of hanging by a wire in there, but that's something I'll need to fix. So that's a little funny. It's just one of those things that I knew I was going to do, obviously, from looking at the listing on the outside. Now, that being said, the exterior paint of the car actually looks phenomenal in my opinion. And there are some imperfections, some of the plastic pieces and other bits that haven't aged quite as well with the rest of the car. As we go ahead and we get up a little bit more up and personal, you can see some of the imperfections. Obviously the plastic in the headlights has aged, and that's not much you can do. Now what's interesting to me is that it has these little wipers here, and I'm not really sure where you even find replacements for it. Yes, I can just Google the internet and I'm sure it's easy enough to find. I just haven't put any effort into that because there's other things I'm focused on taking care of. Now the car does have these 18-inch AMG wheels, which are not factory on this car. This car did have some AMG versions, but they are very exclusive and worth considerably more than your standard SL models. Now, this one being a Sport, you'll notice it's got essentially the Sport was a custom appearance package. So what you'll see here is you've got some extra bits on the sidewall here. It did have some other wheels which are no longer with the car, unfortunately, but it came with these little side skirts. You can see the twist and the bend. The normal versions of this car actually have flat slab sides, so this is what you'll find on the higher end model versions of the car, even though they all have the same 5-liter V8, which is producing roughly, this one in particular being a 1999, means it's the M113 engine, which produced roughly 302 horsepower as opposed to the 315-ish horsepower that the prior engines produced. Now, there are some tunes that have been made that you can be added to the engines, but of course, you know, that's some other details. The most important part about this is, despite the horsepower loss, this car does have the upgraded 5-speed electronic shifted transmission, which is known to be phenomenal in these cars. All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about the fact that this car is a Roadster. So what that means is that this top part here, this, as you can sort of get a better view here, this silver hardtop actually comes off. So it takes about 2 people to remove it. You can go ahead and lift the hardtop off, move it aside, and then what you've got yourself is a convertible. Now, this being a convertible, you're not only having the hardtop, there is a powered soft top that sits underneath this that you are able to use once you have removed the hardtop, and if you want to take it for a drive somewhere in case you have bad weather or just want to put it up for security, you have that option to put that soft top on. So that's super cool. I'm glad I got the hardtop with this car. Some cars don't always come with their hardtops. I've seen hardtops sold separately, which is kind of a weird thing. It happens in a lot of other cars, like Miatas, for example, that didn't come with the hardtops. Just a little weird thing in my opinion. Now, the windshield on this has seen better days, but another interesting fact about these Mercedes is that it's only got this one wiper. One big wiper that goes across the entire thing, which is pretty cool. There's not too many cars that have that style of wiper, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless. Looking at the side profile, you can see that awesome sport badge, which we talked about earlier, and this huge long hood, which hides that awesome V8 that we'll be looking at later. Of course, same 18-inch AMG wheels on the back. Now, as we get to the back side of the car, looks absolutely gorgeous, doesn't it? One of the things I love about this is the design for this car is actually done by Bruno Sacco, and you can see it's got these crazy cool flared fenders. that stick out of the side of the car, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. And of course, the sort of stereotypical taillights that you might find that kind of follow the W124 line of cars. And we've got some more aggressive, sporty styling options that come with the SL series now of essentially the sport model. What's interesting about these cars is the fact that they are SLs, all right? So the original Mercedes 300 SL was, of course, a lightweight race car. Now, all of the cars since then have always been very heavy, not really race cars, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of SL, which stands for super light. Nonetheless, let's get into the rest of the car. Now, you'll notice it's got some pretty wide, girthy tires on there, not as wide as the stock tires. The previous owner told me the guy he bought it from changed the wheels because he thought the tires were too expensive. That's kind of interesting. It sucks because who doesn't want wider meat? I want to have more meat than Arby's personally, but what can you do about it? So moving on to this side, of course, you can see there is a dent in the back of the car. It's not terrible. I'm sure it could be fixed. It's not really on my list of dressing, but we are going to make sure we want to put on some touch-up paint or something to go ahead and minimize the rust. The surface rust that's happening there, go ahead and clean that up a bit, just to make the car look a little bit nicer without spending too much money on bodywork. Here's the right side of the car. We'll notice the gas tank and everything is located, but you'll notice this side of the car is pretty great too. There's no real issues with the car, so I'm just enjoying it in that regard. So with that, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this beautiful V8. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled the hood release. I figured I'd go ahead and show this to you because this is a little bit weird for me. This is the first Mercedes I've owned, so I'll go ahead and show this to you. The hood release, when you've popped the hood, is actually down here. So there's this little latch that you pull back like that. You see that plastic tab, and then you pull it up, which is usually where the star would be. Now this does have its own freestanding hinges, which is super nice. So you got that aircraft carrier hood all up in the air there. Now, this car is from 1999, and you'll notice how much engine cover there is. To me, this looks like a modern-day engine bay, and this is on a car from 1999. Mercedes always has a good reputation of leading in terms of whatever you see in an older luxury Mercedes is always going to make its way into essentially modern, normal cars. Now, you can see we've got a lot of different stuff in here. Despite how big this engine bay is, you'll notice the battery's not actually in here. That's because that battery is in the trunk, which is very interesting. But nonetheless, here we are. You got some interesting bracing there for the radiator and the fans. Obviously, all of your engine bits, brakes, everything is back here in the section fuse boxes. Name it. Even this awesome thing, which I've already replaced this. So there goes $6 into the restoration and sort of cleaning up of the Mercedes so far. But look at this massive V8. Fuel injected. Alternators down there, power steering. The works. It's an absolutely awesome engine. It really gets up and goes when you want it to, and of course you need that type of horsepower when you've got this car, which I believe weighs in around 4,200 pounds, which is not light. And another interesting thing here, whether it's disintegrated or it was peeled off by somebody, obviously a lot of the noise insulating stuff for the engine has been removed at some point. That's not something I think I'll be replacing because most people don't want it in their cars anyways. So I'm not going to go through the hassle because it's probably just not worth it. But other than that, everything else that I've tested so far seems to be working. So we'll go ahead and move on to the interior. Alright, so I don't have anybody to help me with the top currently, but we'll go ahead and take a look at the interior on this car. Now the interior on mine is not perfect. It's definitely seen some better days. We're going to be cleaning it up and doing a bit more just to make it look better, but we're going to go ahead and go over some of the interesting parts that are in here nonetheless. So this is a Roadster. It's only 2 seats. If you go ahead and look in the back here, you don't have much more than just some extra flat space. Those are some spare parts, things to repair. You have your wind maker, your wind noise reducer, which can also be stored in the trunk. It has its own little pocket back there, and even some speakers for the Bose sound system back there. You'll notice these seats, these are all leather. They're changed. I believe they're like a pleated leather or something. They're a little bit different. The early cars have some different leather than what you'll find in these later cars, but the later cars have the solid wiring, the different engine, and the better transmission. So let me go ahead and pop in here. And man, I will point out these doors are actually pretty heavy, all things considered. You of course have your seat adjustments and everything. I'm not sure what these are because the manual didn't come with the car. You have a little door pocket, which is kind of fun. Oh, including a Celine Dion CD tray and maybe some sunglass stuff in there. What else do we have in here? Aerosmith, not too bad. I'm interested to see what sunglasses are in here. It's like a pseudo carbon fiber cage. Let's see. Oh, Ray-Bans. That's unfortunate that they're not in there. That would have been a great steal as far as all the things to buy in there. But that's what's in that. And then you have some other stuff in here. What I love about all Roadsters, all of the Mercedes Roadsters, is they have these very pretty gauge clusters that you can look at here. They have these cool silver rings, which I believe was either only available with the Sport model or only available with the later cars. I forget exactly which one, but another interesting part, as we're looking at the interior here, this has obviously been replaced. This is not the stock sound unit that came with the car, but this right here is interesting to me. Now, when you see an automatic car, they don't always have these types of gauges. These cars, by the way, all the automatics, all of the SL500s and SL600s, I believe, were automatics. You could only get a manual in the SL320. Now, what's interesting is the fact that this has 1 through 4 gears. So this is a 5-speed, so I'm assuming 5 is just an overdrive gear. And that means that these are all of our speed gears here. So if you ever really needed to hot rod it, there you go. You got 1 through 4. You, of course, got both of your window switches. This is how you actually lower the top, which looks pretty similar to the hardtop itself, which is pretty funny. You got a lot of your center gauges and some even the unlock button and stuff is here. It's not on the door like you see in other cars. Hazards, traction control, or stability control, I should say, on the top locks, etc. AC, and let's see, headlights. And like I said, that's pretty much it. There are some cool stuff, like there's this. You'll see this key here. You can actually pop this up. This needs to be fixed on, obviously, because it's not positioned very well. You got a nice little cubby there, because with the invention of airbags, essentially this car lot doesn't have its glove box. So you get a few cubbies. You get this one, like I said, you get these ones in the door, and then you of course get a little cup holder spot in here where these actually flip out, and then there's your cup holders. So that's pretty interesting. 2 cup holders in there, and then that's pretty much the interior, which is pretty fascinating. Nice little small area, but pretty cool nonetheless. And this car does have some tinted windows and things. Alright, so that's pretty much it for taking a look at my 1999 Mercedes-Benz SL500 Roadster. We're mostly just working on fixing it up and kind of making it look as nice as possible for as cheap as possible is the main goal here, and enjoying the Mercedes Roadster experience. Now, the car needs a lot of work, and it's going to take some time for me to kind of go through everything and see what all the car needs, and just in terms of getting the car ready for whatever I decide to do with it in the future, maybe take some road trips down, whatever. Nonetheless, I'm excited. I've always wanted an R107 Mercedes Roadster, but this is the R129 generation, and I will definitely take it. And I know I pumped a lot of information there, but if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and throw a like on there, as I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel out. If you want to subscribe so you don't miss more content like this in the future, definitely let me know. If you want to see anything specific for this car, and throw that in the comment section below as well. Thank you so much for watching.